feels hot. Like it feels aggressively hot. You really created that through the work. And what's it like? What was it like for you to get involved? And could you explain your working relationship with Gabe? Obviously, you shot Tango Shalom as well, which I've looked at every frame that you shot, fell in love with your work. But you just have a great eye, and I love your compositions in this film. How did Gabe drag you into this, and how did you begin to come up with a palette? What was your approach to?
Well, two completely different films, as you can see. The relationship with Gabriel, of course, goes back in all time when we start talking about this film, particularly for a long time. It took us a long time to do it, a long time to post-production. And the reason that you said that it looks and felt hot, yes, indeed, it has that feeling, but I don't think it's just that the feeling that I wanted to reproduce. We try to create with these two cameras that we used, and in those days we used a camera that today is basically super obsolete, but we had to work very hard to create the feeling that we and Gabriel wanted to achieve for the audience, to have a particular claustrophobic scene, and light very contrasty, extremely dark in one way, but on the same token try to get the possibility of feeling, and the dialogue that the Gabriel wrote together with them, and amazing actions that it took us like 16 days to do the film, which is pretty much a record, I would say.
Were they consecutive? Did you shoot 5-day weeks, or did you shoot for 16 full days all the way through?
We were in this place that is above Tehachapi, in the desert, above, what was the name of the town, the actual town? Lorraine. How did I forget that? I remember one time we woke up in the morning, it was all snowing in. We shot it in April, and the color was so amazing. Too bad we couldn't use it, because of course it was supposed to be South Africa, there's no such a thing there. The field, this place is an amazing place. When we did location scouting, it took us a while to find the place. And I said to Gary, this is it. And the transformation of the house from where it was originally when they were kids to when they grew up. The production design did an amazing job. And we tried to recreate with the lights, and Cesar, the gaffer, did a great job with me. So I appreciate, thank you, Cesar. And, it was tough.
It's like, I'm meeting you tonight. I've been looking at you in this film, and I was blown away, and what a fantastic portrait. I thought you were from South Africa. Just like I can tell it is from South Africa, but I did not know. So tell us, how did you find yourself involved in the film?
From a simple audition. I'm not from South Africa, from Chicago originally. But yeah, from an audition, and I feel like we connected, I think, from that moment. I just read it just spoke to me, everything was on the page for me. So, and it was a nice boost to have actual South Africans say, hey, gee, are you sure you're not from South Africa? Like, yeah, no, not. But I loved it, loved every second.
Charlotte, we met over the computer the other day, and you, when I saw your performance, a reviewer today called you absolutely fearless. And you told the story, I thought you were just this incredible veteran actress. You must have spent years and years, studying for this part, but you told me that tell us the story of how you were cast in this film, because it was very surprising.
Okay. Yeah, so I called my manager in New York to have a chat to see if there was anything going on. And she said, well, come to think of it, I submitted you for a South African project, and they only wanted genuine South Africans, because actually a South African accent is quite difficult to get right. So they wanted a true, authentic South African accent. She said, but they haven't called me. Let me call them, I'll call you back. So she called them and called me back, and she said, well, they overlooked your resume because I didn't actually put there that you were actually South African. So she said, you're going in tomorrow for this audition. So she sent me the script, and I just read it and felt alive with it. It it was just alive in me already, and I was really excited to go for this audition, and I went the next day, and I think I had a few scenes to prepare. I walked out of the audition, and I stepped out onto the street, and I called my mother in South Africa, and I cried on the phone and said, "Mommy, if I don't get this, I just don't know what I'm gonna do. I love this part so much. Oh God, please God." You know, my mother said, "I've got a really good feeling about this." She said, "Just, you know, why don't you go and take yourself out for lunch?" So I did. I got in a cab, I went downtown to Soho, and I ordered myself a burger. And then the phone rings as I'm just about to take my first bite, and my manager says, "You gotta go back, and you gotta prepare these other 2 scenes, and you need to look like a dirty farm girl. Like, go find a dirty farm dress and just mess yourself up, honey. Just, you know." I said, "Well, Edie, I don't have time. I've got 45 minutes, a dirty farm dress, prepare the scene." She said, "Just make a plan." So I thought, okay. I got in, ran out to Soho, ran into H&M, I think it was, grabbed a dress, got in the cab, went uptown, got up to the casting director's office, and there was a pot plant with some dirt in it, and I grabbed a handful of dirt, went into the ladies' room, made a little mud pie, and rubbed it on my face, and ripped my dress, and walked in there looking like a crazy person, and they were all just silent and kind of stone-faced. I thought, oh shit, I might have taken this a little too far. And then again, it was the easiest audition, which is not always the case actually, because there was, I don't know, I guess it was meant to be. I just felt her from the beginning, and that's how I got it. We started shooting not long after. There wasn't a lot of time to really get to know each other. So that first scene, which is the love scene, we shot on the very first day. So we hadn't really had much time to warm up to each other. But we thank heavens that everybody on that set was just so kind and open-hearted, and it was just this natural synergy that grew each day. And it was very magical, really magical experience.
And on a low budget, tight schedule like this, you're asking a great deal of these actors. And what do you do to set the stage for them, to make them feel comfortable and bring them along? And if the 3 of you talk about that process.
Well, I think the fact that Chella, Connie, and Damon, somehow they made this their home. There was like a sense of pride in their home. And I don't know of any other movie in history where the more dirt and schmutz I threw on these 2 ladies, the prettier they looked. It was the strangest thing. Usually it's the other way around. And you know, we had like an old school Russian production designer who didn't use fake dirt. He used real dirt. And it's interesting, you know, like when Chella landed on the bed and the dirt flew in the air, God, that must not have been healthy for any of us inhaling it.
Massimo probably thought, oh, that's great.
Load of dust.
Real dirt, not like a smoke machine where they fake the dirt. Real dirt, it's got little crystals in it, and it flickered, and it was just so much magic in that place that we shot in. And it was also the setting, you know, everything was wood, fire, dirt. It was all elements. And I think when you're surrounded by elements, you get more grounded, not just as an actor, but a filmmaker. And we actually lived all in the same location. One man's trash is another man's treasure. I mean, I think it felt like we were all camping, and we look at the stars at night, and old school cowboys walking around with shotguns, and they actually, it was a cow ranch, so we'd be eating the cows that they were, you know, it was organic. I mean, those cows lived amazingly out there until we ate them, but.
Rocky Mountain oysters?
I didn't have any of those, although Johnny did. Johnny Coyne, who played that character. It was really a special thing. And I think because they made it feel so like home, it was so natural to them that they allowed themselves to play. And when they were playing those scenes where they were acting out, we find out later it's the parents, it was just so natural. And any other way we would have shot this movie, I still can't believe it came across so natural. Because on the page, it really looks like they're just mad out of their head, And the interesting thing that I was just watching the movie now thinking about is Connie's character was their mother. And you don't get that at first. And it's also a play. She's taking over the role of the mother. So there's a lot of story within a story within a story within a story. What's real? What's fake? And I think the only thing that kept it all together was this sense of belonging. They all have this sense of belonging. I mean, when those two are in their hole, I mean, you would think it's the greatest thing. I loved it when Chella said, "We dig." That's a good thing. Like, she's talking about it like, I've got a 401k and this is our profession. So, we dig. Like the sense of pride in their job, whatever that job is.
You mastered looks. Like every time the camera would hit your eyes, whether you're in a doorway or whether you did you work on that? Was that it was, I loved those looks that you, every time the camera found your face, it was both terrifying and also sort of nurturing at the same time. Did you practice? No. Not at all?
No, it just went with the moment. Whether I was in a scene, if I was in a scene with Jella and Damon, it was just natural. I'm their mama bear.
Right.
I basically raised them. So it was just natural. He was this guy, Johnny Coyne's character, and I'm like, I don't like you the minute you step in the door, So
It was terrific.
protected.
Now, Cello, when we spoke, you talked about a voice that you had come up with, and you didn't know if it was the right voice. And I'm watching this on this big screen. It is. I just want you to know it is the right voice. And I loved what you were doing when you would go into that childlike persona. And again, was there something you were drawing on to bring you into that space?
I think it's all very intuitive for me. It was very much, as I said, there wasn't a lot of time to rehearse and make decisions prior, so it really happened in the moment. And I think you asked me what were some of your challenges when we were chatting, and I said, well, yeah, I remember that I had to find these different voices for these different parts of myself as I'm role-playing and delving back into the past and reliving these, my mother and the games we used to play. And so there's my mother's voice. That was the voice that I was challenged to. Wasn't sure that I quite found it, and Gabe and I were in this back and forth about what was going to be distinct about the mother's voice. That's when I go into this, lording over the house and ordering the servant around, and that's when I'm in. And so the voice was quite shrill, which when I hear it now, sometimes I think maybe that the pitch was a little too high, but it's what was found, and I know those voices because growing up in South Africa, I've heard those voices many times. So I think I probably drew from my childhood and familiar voices and sounds.
It's very haunting.
It helped a lot, Johnny Coyne's kind of subtle reaction of realizing he's like in a madhouse. He's the chill down his spine we all kind of feel, and that really helped. because at some point the audience has got to say, something's off here. And that's why his character was so good. It was so grounded. He's Commonwealth. He's from England, but he's actually Greek, Greek Cypriot. And we talked about his character, and a lot of South Africans who are of British descent, they have like the king's accent, the queen's accent, very prim and proper. And so this Afrikaans dialect, this kind of feral Boer dialect that freaking Sissy had, juxtaposed against this very, upper crust, prim and proper, attorney who comes to the house. You just know these worlds don't come together. I mean, there was a war between the Boers and the Brits. And fascinating to see Johnny's reactions to Connie's character, because he's a racist. You could just tell just the way he words things, and she knows he's a racist, and just that acknowledgement, that it just added to the tension. So in some ways, with Steve Yeaman's great score, just this tension keeps building and building and building and building. It's, where is this going to go? And I think that's what holds us. Friends, we are going to do a really exciting VOD release of the film that's going to go live midnight on Halloween. And in the old days, you'd get a distributor, then do that. Now you do it first. And the distributors look at your analytics and then come to you. So yeah, we'll spread the word to you about our VOD release, and tell your friends. So flashbacks really only work if they get entirely subjective. So we would get very close onto Jella's face. She does a flashback. Very close into Damon's face. So there are certain cues that you have to do for flashbacks, because they're a very, very tricky device, and they don't always work. I know, because sometimes we just couldn't get it to work in the editing room until we kind of figure out ways to really make that segue, just jump the audience into that other world. But again, the red dress that the mother wears, that she wears in the opening scene, the father's hat that Fricky wears, and at the end, she puts that on his head when she's beating Grove. You can even use props to trigger the relationship with the past and flashbacks.
I gotta give a shout out to Steve Yeaman, who did the score and the sound design.
Who's a Gardena native, by the way.
Yeah,
He's vacationing in Greece right now.
he also worked on Tanker Shalom, and he is what would you call him? He's meticulous to a fault, and he's a wonderful guy, and he actually redid the sound design for this movie fairly recently.
Yeah, what we realized is we have to lean on the horror. We started off with a drama. We all thought we were making a drama, and the more we got into it, all of us, we turned to each other and said, you know what? This is more of a psychological horror film. It just has all the trappings of that. It's interesting. I originally wanted to call it The White Devils, and Chella said, no, you can't do that. I said, what do you mean? She says, take out the "the." I was like, really? So I wrote it down on White Devils, and it just stood out to me. The "the" is a little too, maybe exploitive, or, it's not called The Jaws, it's just called Jaws. And it's interesting too, because even the term "white devils," it has so many connotations, right? Maybe obviously race relations come to mind, but releasing it around Halloween, White Devils, all of a sudden it has a totally different feel to it. More classic horror type element. And the fact that it's plural, it's a little playful. But yeah, there was also humor in there too. I mean, it's an interesting piece, and I think that type of stuff was needed because if you don't have little release here and there, I don't think you can hold the audience. Chilla goes, "No, please stay. We'll take care of you." It's like, okay, no thanks.
Thanks everybody for coming out. Gabe, thank you.